No Man's Lie. Yeah, it's terrible wordplay. The reality is that No Man's Sky perhaps represents the biggest turnaround in gaming history. And there's a point in recent history where the gaming and perhaps even the wider entertainment industry crossed a line on hype. It happened sometime, I think, in the past 10 years, and it feels as though No Man's Sky perhaps played a big part in that. But that game is far from alone in its contribution towards the current problems surrounding overhyped products. For example, search for the news today for Magic the Gathering and you will find headlines showing the popular trading card game is suffering huge self-inflicted issues. More on that in just a moment. But as for No Man's Sky, today it is one of the best live service games you can buy. It also has one of the best and most loved development teams behind it. And if you haven't tried the game yet, do yourself a favour and take a look. The reason the game is so good is because the people behind it learnt from their mistakes. They admitted to their failures and changed direction. This is something many other companies could learn from, but unfortunately there are too few examples of that. Now, this video isn't specifically about No Man's Sky. Instead, the video is part of a series discussing the various problems in the gaming and wider entertainment industries, problems that have been faced in recent years. You can find the first part of that video series linked on screen right here, and both parts 1 and 2 are linked in the video description. No Man's Sky then, as with the previous videos, is a springboard into a broader discussion, and the point of entry into that topic is hype, or more specifically, overhype. No Man's Sky, of course, was hyped to the moon and back, and many people genuinely believed the title would be the second coming. Whether or not Hello Games believed their own hype is certainly open for debate though. Now, I won't recount the launch disasters of No Man's Sky here. At this point it is very well known, perhaps one of the most well known stories in gaming. Suffice to say, a lot of factors played into that whole story, including many people believe Sony themselves pushing the hype to unreasonable levels. Naturally, No Man's Sky is far from the only game or product to suffer from overhype. Now, since 2016 there have been far too many entertainment releases to count that have had this self-same problem. Sometimes a title simply doesn't live up to the hype, maybe it's broken or buggy. Other times companies misread the market, and on other occasions still, companies are so intent on chasing the money that they are full of their own hubris. Accordingly then, if we take a look at today's newspaper headlines, we can see some of the true news giants are reporting on what they feel is yet another case of this whole situation. The widely popular Magic the Gathering from Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast has hit a major snag. Let's take a look. The Financial Times says, Magic the Slathering. Bank of America says Hasbro is killing its golden goose. CNBC, meanwhile, has a headline that reads, Bank of America says Hasbro could fall 34% due to the company ruining Magic the Gathering card game. The gaming press have also picked up on this. IGN say Hasbro stock down after analysts criticise handling of Magic the Gathering. And Polygon say Hasbro is squeezing Magic the Gathering players for too much money. To summarise the problem then, it seems to have been caused by Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast releasing more products than the audience can sustain. Secondly, one of the unique points of the trading card game is the rarity of certain cards. This means those cards hold specific dollar values, sometimes very high. One big factor of the whole Magic card game then is trading these cards and holding on to the ones that you feel are going to be very valuable. It really is a big part of the game and a huge aspect that holds the community together. But when the company behind the game starts printing more and more of these cards and increasing numbers of variants, far more than the market can sustain, then quite obviously, as anyone with any sense would expect, these cards become, well, less rare, they become very, very common, and that has a knock-on effect. Now, there's also more issues going on with the whole Magic the Gathering scenario here. It seems Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have made quite a mess. If you want to see more on this, do take a look at the video by Alpha Investments that I will link in the video description below. But the bottom line really seems to be that according to many of the game's fans, Hasbro have not been listening to feedback. Instead, they have been full steam ahead, blindly hyping up product release after product release, and some feel that things have gotten so bad that the next product is being hyped before players even have a chance to purchase the current release. The Magic the Gathering market then has become oversaturated and overhyped. Whether it can be fixed, only time will tell, but it's come at a time when the company behind the product isn't listening apparently to feedback from their core audience. It all sounds depressingly familiar, doesn't it? This is something we have been seeing play out again and again in the video games industry. It seems to be a problem that predominantly affects live service and multiplayer titles, although single-player games are not entirely immune to this. So the whole thing is a huge, conflated, tangled mess. Hype is definitely a major component of the problem, or more specifically, should I say overhype. And we've seen this with enough games over the years to see a repeating pattern, a trend, and quite often something you can predict long before it actually happens. Why the companies behind these things continue to make the same mistakes, well, who knows, but it really is a bit of a mystery, but there are a few points here, a few things that do seem to hold true across really all forms of entertainment. So yeah, we see it in the gaming industry, we've seen it now with Magic the Gathering. Another good example in TV would be Amazon's Rings of Power, which by some accounts seem to have also suffered a very similar fate. So the problem, in my view, goes beyond just hype. Personally, I feel hype is a healthy part of a new product reveal and a product release. Even back in the 80s and 90s, I remember being super excited by a new upcoming movie or a new upcoming game. But hype today feels like a different kettle of fish altogether. I mean, based on how things were hyped up a few decades ago, I'd really personally argue that hype on its own doesn't really damage a product or a brand. The problem seems to come when hype is combined with other factors, and there's a number of notable additional causes in my view. Here's a list. Hype combined with chasing a new, wider audience or mainstream audience. Magic the Gathering appears to have attempted this, and that has caused problems. The same could certainly be said for Odyssey, the expansion to Elite Dangerous. Another is hype combined with failing to read the room. What do I mean here? Well, sometimes it just isn't the right time to hype something up or make a change or announce a new product. Another big problem seems to be hype combined with hubris. On some occasions, it's clear to the audience that they don't want a particular thing. Nevertheless, a company continues to push a new product or a massive change to an existing product. The company may get numerous warnings, numerous feedback, but they tend to ignore it, feeling that they know best. Numerous recent games, movies and TV series have hit major snags due to this particular problem. And then there's hype combined with product failure. Either the game or show suffers from bugs or isn't what was initially described or implied. Of course, this isn't an exhaustive list, but in my opinion, I feel these are the main problems. Generally then, it seems to me at least, that hype on its own can be okay and can be quite a lot of fun, but hype combined with greed, ignorance, stupidity greed, I did say that, but greed again, is often a recipe for disaster. Unfortunately, it's something that seems to be happening more and more. Understandably, this has also led to a general distaste for any type of hype among some customers and some parts of the community, who now prefer the wait-and-see method. And let's not forget the part the media play in all of this, and that tangentially also means, of course, YouTubers and live streamers. Often the goal of us YouTubers, and perhaps the goal of media as well, isn't to hype a product, yet simply talking about a product, a game, a movie or news, just discussing some news really, inevitably adds to the entire momentum behind it. It really is an unfortunate side effect. So overhype is very much a real problem. It can cause a lot of issues, but mainly the fix to this seems to be decoupling hype from the issues I've mentioned above. If you can hype on its own and have some good PR, read the room, well, things can go well, but sometimes things do go wrong with this, and yet even then there can be a way to fix it. Hello Games did this beautifully. For them it was about a course correction, admitting fault and really kind of proving a new direction. But unfortunately, many companies out there prefer to remain largely quiet. They prefer to ride out the storm and hope people forget. Perhaps fortunately for them, a lot of people do tend to forget and move on. But unfortunately, both for the customers as well as the companies, this type of approach, this attitude, does have long-lasting consequences and over time certainly erodes trust. It seems to me then that we are in a position where trust between customers and businesses is at an all-time low. Plenty of good reasons for that. It seems to have largely been caused by businesses, but has also led to the emergence of what I call jaded gamers. Or to put that another way, it has led to huge vast amounts of salt being thrown around all the time for very little reason. But the fact remains that, for the most part, the solution to this is very much in the hands of the corporations. They are the ones who created the problem, and it seems they are the ones who need to fix it. At any rate, do let me know your thoughts and feelings on this entire subject in the comments section below. Do you feel hype is a good thing? Do you actually enjoy a good bit of hype? Or do you think it is 100% a problem? Or do you think there's room for middle ground? And if you have any alternative thoughts to this, do let me know in the comment section below. As always, I'd love to hear from you. That then brings us to an end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.